Hey guys, hello and welcome back to our series Explain Like I'm Grelf. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about DAOs. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Bonzo Finance Labs.
And I'm Gerbert the Grelf. I'm a I'm a Grelf.
Nice, great, nice to meet you, Grelf. And yeah, let's get started with DAOs. So, do you know what is a DAO, Grelf, or DAO? Do you know
Uh, uh
what that is?
wait, what's the acronym again?
DAO. So
Oh,
DAO is a DAO.
yeah, that stands for dead on arrival, right?
Not really. So DAO
Oh,
stand for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. And essentially, a DAO is kind of like a company on the blockchain. If you consider it in layman's terms, it can be considered like a company or an entity on the blockchain, right? So in the real world, a company has to be registered with like a government authority, right? So every country has their authority, governing authority, where you need to go and register your company. And then you start like a private limited company or a limited company or, LLC, all these things. And in the real world, a company usually has shareholders, directors, officers, and all these people. So there's like a set structure in which a company needs to be created and formed. But in case of a DAO, all of this is done on the blockchain. And all of these things are governed by a set of smart contracts. And it's not just the smart contracts, but it's like the smart contracts have all the rules of this DAO, and the token holders of that project are usually the governing council. So if you are a token holder, you can vote on like DAO proposals. You can even delegate your voting power to other people in the DAO community, right? So let's say there's another person who is more influential or they are more active in the DAO governance, then you can delegate your vote or your voting power to that person. Yeah, is that clear or do you have any other questions on this, Grell?
so like when they put up things for peeps to vote on, right?
Mhm.
Do, does every one guy get one vote?
That depends. That depends on how the DAO is structured, right? But usually, the DAO voting kind of power or the weightage of your vote is based on the number of tokens you hold. So the more number of tokens you hold, the more voting power you have. So let's say, in case of a project, out of 100% of the tokens, you own 10 or 20 or 30% tokens, right? Then your votes have 30% of the weightage.
Okay, so if somebody holds a lot of tokens, they can just kind of push through whatever they want.
Exactly. And that's one of the dangers of a DAO. And that's why every token project needs to kind of decentralize the token issuance, right? So as many people need to hold the tokens as possible, because if one person holds more than 30-40% of the tokens, they can pass any proposal that they want, almost.
But I guess any proposal that was like give everybody more monies probably would always go through, right?
No, that won't, because again, that's why like the DAO has its own best interests at heart, and what you can believe is that a community will not act in a malicious manner. Having said that, there was an instance in one DeFi protocol a few months ago where a few people got a lot of voting power and they voted or they created a proposal that a lot of money will be transferred to their wallets and or a lot of tokens will be transferred to their own wallets. And this proposal actually got passed, which is crazy if you think about it, right?
Well, not that crazy considering some of the dudes I've seen.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, these are some of the common problems with DAO. So it's very beneficial to have your tokens as widely distributed as possible. So now the next question in your mind might be, why do we need DAOs? Why is there a need for DAOs in the world? And that's because if a project wants to really decentralize and become community focused or community governed, DAO is a vehicle to make that happen. So essentially, real decentralization can only be achieved, not only, but it's one of the best ways to achieve decentralization when the protocol is governed by the community rather than the founding team. So instead of like two or three people who are making decisions for the protocol. If it is governed by community, it goes through this voting process and proposals. I think that's a much better way of doing things.
Why is that better?
That's because then the community can have a say in the in how the protocol operates and how the protocol has things that happen on the protocol, right? In case of one or two people who are making decisions, like what's happening in certain social media platforms right now, those people can literally do anything that they want, and that thing that they're doing might not be beneficial for humanity as a whole or the protocol as a whole or platform as a whole, right? But what you can believe is if the community is widespread enough, it won't do malicious activities, like, for example, sending all the money to certain people or sending all the tokens to certain people. Does that make sense?
Sure. So we're trusting the community because there's more of
Yeah.
them than the
Yes.
founding teams.
Yep. Exactly. Now let's look at how DAOs can be created. So, as I said, a DAO is like a parallel concept to a real world entity or to a real world company. Having said that, in countries like Switzerland or Cayman Islands, there are certain types of entities called foundations, and these foundations, they can act like a wrapper for a DAO. So essentially, the founding team creates a foundation in, let's say, Switzerland. They create the protocol, they do the token event, and then the tokens are widely distributed within the community. After that, this foundation essentially gets converted into a DAO, which is an online entity. So what happens is, because of this foundation, it kind of bridges the gap between the real world and the on-chain concepts, if you think about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Sure.
Great. Now, what are or which are the biggest DAOs in Web3 right now? So if you look at a DAO can hold assets. Now, these assets could be stable coins, it could be tokens such as Ethereum or Ramp Bitcoin, or it could be HBAR as well, or it could be the native project tokens, right? So a DAO has something called a treasury in which it holds all its assets. And if you look at the biggest DAOs in Web3, again, I don't know the latest data, but Optimism DAO, Arbitrum DAO, Uniswap, Aave, MakerDAO, these are some of the biggest DAOs in the whole blockchain world, like in the Web3 space, especially if you look at Ethereum space, you know. So these DAOs, they have substantial holdings in their treasuries. And some of these actually hold billions of dollars worth of value in the tokens.
But that's a lot of monies.
That's definitely a lot of money. And imagine, like, when crypto goes mainstream, which might happen in the next 5 to 10 years, these DAOs could be competing with big companies like, Facebooks of the world or the Apples of the world. I'm not saying they might reach $1 trillion in assets held, but they could be actually bigger than some of the Fortune 500 companies, you know. And if you
That's
think about it,
crazy.
yeah, it's insane if you think about that, right? Like DAOs have become so huge, like just 10, 15 years, not even 15, just 10 years ago, the concept of DAOs did not even exist. And in the last 10 years, the DAOs have become so big that they're actually competing with some Fortune 500 companies.
I mean, that's a lot to wrap my little head around.
Yep, 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 absolutely. And
What
then if
about
you come to,
Hedera?
yeah, if you come to our own favorite protocol, Hedera, uh, two of the biggest and most popular DAOs on Hedera are the Saucer Swap DAO and Karate DAO. So as you know, Saucer Swap is a DEX on Hedera, biggest DEX on Hedera, and it's governed by the liquidity providers, the traders who are actually the token holders, right? So when Saucer Swap did the token launch, the SOS token, all its token holders are governing the DAO. They are making decisions on how Saucer Swap will function and what the future features or all these things can be done on the protocol. And same goes for Karate DAO as well. So Karate DAO is a great example of how athletes and fans can own a protocol. So these fans and athletes, they bought the karate tokens and they are actually making decisions for the karate protocol now as a whole. And that's really cool if you think about it.
That is pretty cool. What's the incentive for the founding teams to introduce something that takes power away from them?
That's a great question. So the founding team has an incentive to decentralize their protocol as much as possible, because most of these founding teams, when they start a decentralized protocol, they don't want to be the ones who are governing the protocol for their whole life, you know. But if you look at a protocol like Avi or even Saucer Swap, these protocols, they exist on chain, right? Now, Saucer Swap has a liquidity of more than $150 million as of last week, and the team has delegated the control to the DAO now. Although some of the team members hold substantial number of tokens, they can guide the decisions, but the decision-making power has now been delegated to the community. And I think that's a great way of kind of creating a protocol and giving it in the hands of the community.
Oh, so it makes their job a little easier.
Not just that, but these founding teams, when they start these protocols, that's like the whole motivation, right? That's like the whole incentive, or like that's the whole philosophy behind starting these protocols. For example, with Bonzo, we started the protocol. We have about $40 million in TVN as of yesterday, and we'll be doing a token launch in the next month. And then subsequently, we'll also be creating a DAO and giving over the control to the community. So that's why we started Bonzo Finance.
Because you wanted to make a DAO?
Not really. We wanted to make a protocol which succeeds, and then we
Oh,
wanted to decentralize the protocol. So the whole concept of behind starting Bonzo Finance was to create a decentralized protocol. And as I said, one of the best ways of decentralizing a protocol is to create a DAO and delegating the power to the community.
so DAOs are good.
DAOs can be good if they are in the right hands, but they can be used for malicious purposes as well. In case someone can, get a lot of your tokens and, start doing malicious things. So yeah,
Okay, so they're
if you look at
chaotic
this,
good.
they are chaotic good. If you look at the sum of balances, I would say most of the times DAOs can be beneficial and good, but if they're not implemented in the right manner, they can be chaotic and yeah, detrimental.
I like that. I like that. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Having said that, I think we can end the video here. And next time, we'll be talking about some other interesting concept in the world of Web3. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Grel.
Thanks.